5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, hello. We are live on YouTube, BuzzChomp channel. I'm Dan Salem, about to talk the NFL, the Dallas Cowboys, and more specifically, the NFC for this upcoming season. Yeah, the NFC. That's the competitive conference that we'll say this season. Let me go live on Facebook before I dive right into things. And we are live in 3, 2, 1. Hello. I am Dan Salem, live on Facebook. Facebook mentions at the Dan Salem. I'm live on YouTube, BuzzChomp channel. I'm going to tweet this link out at the Dan Salem on Twitter, and I'm going to retweet it on BuzzChomp. So feel free to join in the conversation, all you Cowboys lovers, all you Cowboys haters, because as we talk the NFC, we've got to talk the Dallas Cowboys because they enter the year as NFC favorites. Ignore the Jets picture. The Jets were tanking. We talked about that last year. They're still tanking. Last week, I should say. This week, it's all about the Cowboys and the NFC. So, it's sunny out, as you can see behind me. The sun's pouring in. It means it's summer. That means NFL minicamps are opening. My team, the Jets, started their minicamp today. So what, right? Not really much to talk about. Team stinks. They're obviously shit-canning the season. But other teams are also opening their camps. Giants open minicamp, etc. And that means the season's nearing, and besides a couple of random free agents who are on the market, like Eric Decker, Jerry Maclin, Colin Kaepernick, who may get signed before the year begins, we can kind of identify the favorites in each conference, and we'll make some picks going forward here on who we think. Now, I will talk AFC, but New England Patriots are the favorites. They're the defending champions, and they did quite a bit this offseason, and nobody else in the AFC even came close. Raiders tried. So the AFC is a little less interesting of a conversation. I made the bold statement that the Dallas Cowboys are favorites in the NFC. I must include a single caveat because there's always a such thing, I guess it's called a sophomore slump. I don't expect this from Ezekiel Elliott or Dak Prescott, but it is a possibility that these two former rookies who starred in their first seasons have a sophomore slump. That would probably cost Dallas a win or two, put them into the wild card round of the playoffs rather than skipping and getting a week off, and truly set them back on their quest for a championship, or at least to make the Super Bowl and face probably the Patriots. I don't think they're going to have a sophomore slump, but it is a necessary caveat to mention that barring a sophomore slump, this is the favorite, because the slump would preclude them from being as good as they were last season. I expect both players to get better. Still got Dez Bryant. Their defense much improved. I think they still got a great offensive line. The Cowboys are the favorites in the NFC. I will take a quick peek at their roster in a shake. Let's bring it up, assuming it's been updated on this website that we call ESPN. Ow. Yeah, they added some nice defensive players in the draft. So 3 cornerbacks. Wow, they won't all make the team. But that's good. They needed the depth. That was one of their main weaknesses. And they've started their mini camp up. I mean, 13-3 last year. They won the division. I don't expect them to do better. I think that they'll finish 12-4, 13-3 once again. And I think that they'll win the NFC East once again. I really like the New York Giants this season. I just think that the Giants are not quite as good as the Dallas Cowboys. We'll look at the schedules in a moment because how that shakes out can have a big effect on this 1 or 2 game swing. I have a feeling that the Giants and the Cowboys split this season. Giants took both last year. That was kind of a fluke in my opinion. The Giants are also prone to injury and had a relatively healthy season last year. It was one. They deserved one. They needed one. And so I would consider the Giants pretty much a lock for the playoffs. It's hard to say, like some teams every year change over in the playoffs. The same teams are not going to make it. The same teams are not going to win the division. But I don't know. I really still like the Cowboys. I still like the Giants. I still like the Falcons, and I still like the Seahawks. That's 4 of 6 teams in the NFC. That leaves 2 spots, and one of them is probably going to the Packers. So that's almost the identical playoffs. This is on paper. This is well early. This is before injuries happen. This is before people surprise us, rookies, etc. But the Giants loaded back up on offense. If they can find a running game, their defense is already very good. They're going to be there. I just think that they're probably a game back of the Cowboys. And the Cowboys are really, really good. I like them in the NFC. I like them to win the division. But the NFC's crowded at the top. I mean, I think that the Falcons are going to continue to be really good. Now, everything broke right for them last year, so I think that they're still the best team in their division, but they're not going to, I mean, I'd be shocked if they represented the NFC again in the Super Bowl. They're not as good as Dallas. They're not as good as the Giants. And the Seahawks, they're still really good. They're still the best team in their division. Green Bay, best team in their division. I don't have a lot of faith in Arizona being better than Seattle, while I do think Arizona can be better than last year because they were really good 2 years ago. And I don't have faith in Carolina being better than Atlanta, but I do think that they can be better than last year because they were really good 2 years ago. And I don't have much faith in the Vikings being better than the Packers, but they can be better than last year because they were really good 2 years ago. You see a theme here? Several of the teams that were good 2 years ago were bad last year, or fell well short of expectation. And I can see them all rebounding because they all have consistency at the quarterback position. Every single one of these NFC teams at the top has quarterback consistency and, furthermore, has a good quarterback. I'm talking Dak Prescott, Eli Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Cam Newton, Matt Ryan. Who am I missing? Carson Palmer. And then the guy, the lone wolf there, the Vikings don't really have that. Then they fell back last season, so I don't expect them to rebound it. Yeah, was that everybody? Yeah, that was all of them. So that's not uncommon. It's actually pretty predictable in this day and age. Everything breaks right. You gain a few more wins. Everything, get a couple injuries and bounce to the football, quote unquote. And you lose a couple victories and you're out of the playoffs like Arizona last year, more or less. So, Cowboys are favorites. They open the season against the Giants in New York. It's going to be a tough game. Sunday night football. Oh, no, sorry. They're at home. But it's still going to be a tough divisional game. Dallas should win their home opener to open the year. And they got to go to Denver and Arizona. I am not too high on the Broncos this year. I think that they're pretty much an 8-8 football team. I don't trust their quarterback. I mean, that's a win. The Cardinals game, I don't know what to make of the Arizona. It's more of a, I think that Dallas should beat them. They're a better team, but you never know. You're at Arizona. Then they get LA Rams at home and the Packers at home. See, Packers on the road will be much harder. Packers at home and the Dallas favorite. I mean, Dallas has got good home field advantage. They play the 49ers and the Redskins, obviously. The Chiefs at home again. They have to travel to Atlanta. So that's probably one of their toughest games of the season. They play the Chargers. They have to travel to Oakland. That's also a tough game. I mean, they play Seattle and Green Bay, but they play them both in Dallas. So those kind of even out. But they got to go to Oakland to play the Raiders, and they got to go to Atlanta to play the Falcons. So, naming that, I could see 3, maybe 4 losses from the Cowboys, but they're winning 12 or 13 games easy. This is a really good team. Like I said, barring a sophomore slump, and of course the Odgers injury caveat. Okay, so if the Cowboys are going to be really good, then where's that leave like the rest of the NFC? I mean, who's going to rebound? Dallas was really good last year. Their schedule still look like they're going to be really good. Do we think the Eagles are going to take a step forward with Carson Wentz? No. I think the Dallas Cowboys are going to beat up on them, and so are the New York Giants. I like Kirk Cousins and the Redskins. I don't think the rest of Washington is good enough, especially not to compete with Dallas and New York. I also am not thinking the Lions are going to keep it together. Chicago stinks, and the Vikings are an average team. I don't know if they can get over the hump. That final wild card spot will be really competitive, but I think the first one is going to belong to the Giants. If they somehow top the Cowboys, then it belongs to the Cowboys. But the Cowboys are the prohibitive favorites, easy. And then, like I said, Atlanta. If Carolina can rebound, I like what Tampa Bay's doing, and I kind of like what the Saints have done to try to finish out Drew Brees' career. I just don't trust either of them to be much better than 9-7, and that's not going to cut it. I mean, that was the final wild card spot, I guess, last year. 9-7 was Detroit, but they were 6-2 at home. That helped tremendously. And then you got Arizona. I can't click on the LA Rams. Wonder why? Error. And Seattle. Seattle was 10-5-1 last year. And Arizona was 7-8-1. I don't know. I don't dislike the Seahawks. They're just the best team in their division. But I don't like them a lot either. I mean, they're fine. Russell Wilson to Jimmy Graham's gotten better, and the running game manages to do well. I don't know what the defense is, what's happening there. They're the best team in the NFC West, which to me is not saying a whole lot because San Francisco and LA stink. And Atlanta, they're going to have their work cut out for them. That's going to be a tough conference division to win the NFC South this year. But it still keeps our favorites, the Dallas Cowboys, well in the driver's seat. So, if the Giants can compete with Dallas, they got a tough schedule. Their schedule does them no favors because they're going to Dallas, they got to go to Tampa Bay, to the Broncos. They get to play the Chiefs at home. They got to go to Oakland also. They have to go to Arizona. I mean, that's not too bad. I still like that. I think the Giants and the Cowboys are probably the best two teams in the NFC. I don't know what Green Bay is going to be able to put together. I mean, Aaron Rodgers always wins a lot of games, but they got to face Seattle. They got to go to Atlanta. They get the Bengals, who have been very good over the last 5 years. They have to come to Dallas. And they also they play the Ravens, and they got to go to Pittsburgh to face the Steelers. They're at Carolina, so the schedule does the Packers no favors. It really helps out the Cowboys' chances to go into the playoffs with the number 1 seed once again. I don't trust the Falcons to be quite as good, but I do think that they will win the South. Like I said, I think the Seattle Seahawks take a step back. Aaron Rodgers keeps his Packers kind of plateaued, which is in the 9-7, 10-6 range, which leaves it really Cowboys-Giants, which is fun. I mean, I'm not a Giants fan, but I grew up in New York area, and that's a great rivalry. Everyone loves the Cowboys or hates the Cowboys, and I don't know, the Giants are kind of like well respected, and that's a good, solid rivalry, and that's a good NFC rivalry right there, especially with Eli Manning still leading the way for the Giants because he's a well-known Super Bowl winning quarterback. All right, so that being said, what do we think realistic expectations are for Dallas's rookies? I mean, can they really be better? Dak Prescott should be able to get better. They can trust him more with more passing routes and more mixed plays and putting the ball in his hand and letting him go downfield and just trusting him in the passing game more and more and more. Not that they didn't last season, but now that he's got a year under his belt, they can really open up their playbook even further for him as a second-year quarterback. But Zeke Elliott freaking owned the NFL last year, so if anything, maybe they work him into the passing game a little bit more and or spell his legs a little bit so they could save him for the end of the season / playoffs. Not that, I mean, you want to use your guys, but you don't want to run your running back into the ground either. I mean, you got Dak Prescott and a solid passing game. Why run out your running back for the sake of it? I mean, it's make no sense. So I could see his stats dropping slightly but maybe going in the running side and then going up in the passing side. Just because, I mean, or they could keep running him. I just feel like last year they used Dak. I mean, they used Zeke's abilities to kind of cover for any rookie mistakes Dak was making. And so they don't necessarily need to do that anymore. So they can kind of temper his load, if you will. I guess that's the best way of saying it. So we really like the Cowboys in the NFC. I'm just interested. Oh, that's not what I want to see. I was trying to look see any final free agents. Like someone like Eric Decker. Wherever he lands, that is going to be a huge bump to that team's offense. And I mean, I wouldn't put it past anybody to signing him. I mean, the Giants are going to sign him because they're loaded at wide receiver. But Dallas, Green Bay, Seattle, Atlanta, I mean, any team would be lucky to add him. And he's just sitting out there because the Jets just dumped him because he was too expensive, quote unquote. Plus, everyone knew they were going to dump him. So, this is not helpful either. Screw this. My thoughts really are Decker is going to land with a contender, and it's going to push that team over the top. Now, if he lands with the Cowboys, whoa. But if he lands with Seattle, then I'm going to have to change my stance on the Seahawks a little bit. Okay, if he lands with the Packers, I'm going to have to change my stance on Green Bay a little bit. Now, I'm not familiar enough with these teams to know their monetary situations, but he's a steal. There's a lot of AFC teams that could really use him because the Patriots are going to be tough to compete with, but we'll talk about that next week. All right, so you got mini camps opening. I guess as a Jets fan, I will touch on the Jets momentarily. You got to report something, right? So the mini camp opens. This is mandatory, so all the players got to be there. And as a Jets fan, there's not much to really care about right now except for the quarterback. Because we don't know who the starter is going to be. And that really determines how bad or really bad this team will be because we're not going to be good. We've got so many young players. It would be a real surprise if the Jets finished over 500. It would not be a surprise if they were under last year because we got rid of our two best players on each side of the football. So just most recently, we really threw in the towel and like, all right, there's no point. Let's get a high draft pick. I understand it. Just sucks as a fan. But so the ESPN, they got their guys there and they're reporting. The report was that the Jets quarterbacks as a collective completed their first 13 passes. Okay. That's a fun little headline, but it's completely meaningless. And then there's a line that Hackenberg was way off target by the end of it, which again, okay, that's the same story we've heard about him. Oh, to be a fan of a good team, because the news out of Cowboys camp, who are our NFC favorites, has nothing anywhere remotely close to that. Like, talk about fake positive headlines and then a demonstratively negative one. You don't get that from the team that's the favorite. You only get that from the team that stinks balls. It's going to be an interesting season rooting for the Jets. It's going to be an interesting season writing about the Jets. Because barring pleasant surprises on a consistent basis, which are possible, but I have zero control over, I do not have high expectations for my football team. All right, let's touch on the other world of sports because the NBA season wrapped up with the Golden State Warriors taking the title for the second time in 3 seasons, beating Cleveland for the second time in 3 seasons. Cleveland beat them last year, came back for a monster comeback victory. Kevin Durant won Finals MVP. Neither of those things are rather surprising. It also wasn't surprising that Cleveland did not sweep because it wasn't surprising that Cleveland prevented the sweep because if Golden State swept the finals, they would have swept the entire playoffs. And if they had swept the entire playoffs, that would pretty much make them the best team ever. And my brother and I went out on a limb on BuzzChomp.com last Friday and wrote the undefeated season by the Warriors' best ever. Because they honestly should have won Friday night, except the NBA didn't really want them to. Now, I'm not going to get into the NBA being rigged because there's a lot of evidence for that, and it's a very volatile conversation. But if you think about it, the NBA would not have wanted the Warriors to sweep because that means they were better than Michael Jordan's teams and Kobe Bryant's teams, and it puts them on a level well above every other legend because they were undefeated in the playoffs. Simply by losing once, they are on par, and we can debate whether they're better. But if they had won undefeated, there wouldn't be a debate. Now it's still an open question. Well, can this Warriors team beat the Bulls team? Blah, 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 blah. If they were undefeated, you start thinking that Jordan is a step behind, and nobody wants that from a marketing standpoint. Nobody wants that from a debate standpoint. The NBA didn't want that. The Warriors won handily, but they didn't sweep. Not very surprising. In baseball, my Yankees have still been crushing it. Woo, pointing at the hats. They have absolutely been monster on fire. Aaron Judge, 22 home runs now, leading All-Star voting. What a smash hit as a Yankee rookie. Talking conspiracy theory, it's very much in MLB's best interest for the Yankees to be good. I'm just happy. I'm a fan of the team, and they are on fire. Several games up in the division, leading the AL East. This is a fun time to be a Yankee fan because the team's young, and they are just doing great. The one player who hasn't done well so far is Masahiro Tanaka, our starting pitcher, and he's got time to turn it around. The fact that he's not being good and we are still crushing it is a huge, wonderful sign for our season. All right, this was fun. I'm Dan Salem. I was live on Facebook. I'm still live on YouTube, and at the Dan Salem on Facebook, at the Dan Salem on Twitter, over on YouTube, BuzzChomp channel, also Let's Pillow Talk, also YouTube Success, also Maddie and Me. Launching lots of channels this summer. Those two just launched. Maddie and Me, my little daughter Maddie, is adorable. Check her out on that channel. And I've started a YouTube Success channel because there are several keys to being truly successful on YouTube. And they aren't all obvious. And putting them in one nice, clean package as a class, but it's free on YouTube, seemed right. It's there for you, YouTube Success. Join me next Tuesday. I am live every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific time, talking the NFL and touching on sports. I'm Dan Salem. Have a good night. Peace out. Enjoy the evening. What?